If your brain feels like it's just full by the middle of the day, like you've already made too many decisions before lunchtime, it's not because you're disorganized. And it's not because you're not trying hard enough. You see, there's a very specific reason why you're feeling this way and why this is happening. And once you see it, it becomes incredibly difficult to ignore. Because what most women are dealing with in business right now isn't actually a workload problem. It's a decision load problem. And those two things initially feel very, very similar, but they behave completely differently. A workload problem can be solved by working more efficiently. A decision load problem, well, it doesn't work like that because it's not about how much you are doing. It's not about your output. It's about how many times your brain has to switch, assess, decide, and move on. And that is exhausting in a way that's really difficult to explain unless you're actually in it. You see, it's not just visible workload. It's the constant background layer of who do I need to message? Have I followed up with? Where are my next clients coming from? Am I doing enough? Should I be doing something else? And that layer never really switches off. So even when you're technically out of office and not working, your brain is still focusing on these things. And that's why so many businesses feel heavy, even when on paper they look quite simple. Now, this is where automation, in my opinion, often gets misunderstood because people think automation is about saving time. And to be fair, it is partially. But in my opinion, the real value of automation is that it removes decisions, and that gives you a completely different outcome. Because when something's handled for you consistently, you don't just save time, you stop thinking about it altogether. And that's the shift that changes everything. Now, I've been seeing this very clearly over the last few weeks because I've been running a beta group through my lead generation system. It's called the Connection Scout. And what's interesting isn't just the results. I mean, the results are good, but that's not the part that is standing out the most for me. The part that stands out is how people are feeling. Because when they're no longer waking up and wondering where the leads are coming from, when they're no longer trying to figure out who to speak to, when that decision is already made for them every day, something changes. They get their email at 8 o'clock every morning and they know that, and that helps them to relax. And that might sound like something small, but it's not. Because that space, that mental space, is where better, clearer thinking happens. You get better conversations, better relationships, better business decisions. And suddenly, things that used to feel overwhelming, well, they feel manageable again. Now, here's where this gets really important because I don't believe in automating everything, and I talk about this a lot. In fact, I think that's where most people go wrong. They try and automate the whole of the business, and they end up creating something that feels disconnected and, frankly, a bit rigid and mechanical because at the end of the day, not everything should be automated. And this week has actually reinforced that for me quite strongly because alongside the systems, my systems doing their jobs, I've also been watching how people are using conversations or using my conversations into clients' guide. And the feedback on that has been quite frankly incredible. Not because it's replacing conversations, but because it's supporting them. It's helping people feel more confident in how they show up. They're more natural. They're more They have more clarity in what they want to say. And that's the part in every business that should always, always stay human. So what you end up with is a very different type of business, one where the repetitive, draining decisions are handled and the meaningful human interactions, well, they're protected. And that balance is what creates something sustainable for you and your business. Because the goal isn't to remove yourself from your business. The goal is to remove the pressure that's sitting on top of it. And once you start thinking about automation in that way, everything changes. Because instead of asking, what can I automate? You start asking, what is draining me every day? And that's the question that leads you to the right systems for you and your business. Now, for me, that answer was always very clear. It was always about lead generation. Not because it's complicated, but because it is consistent. It never stops. And even if I had a really good day, when I came back to my office the next day, it was still there, waving at me and saying, I need to do it again. And it creates this low level pressure that sits in the background all the time. So by removing that, everything else became lighter. And that's exactly why I've made a slightly unusual decision this month. Even though the system is ready to take more clients, I'm only opening 5 spaces because I want to make sure that the people who come in feel the shift immediately, not after a learning curve, not after weeks of figuring things out for themselves, from day one. Because if a system doesn't replace pressure quickly, it's not doing its job properly. And I think that's the standard we should be holding automation to. Not just does it work, but does it make my life feel easier? Because that is the whole point. So if your business currently feels heavy and you're constantly thinking about what needs to be done next, there's a very good chance it's not your effort that needs to change. It's your systems, or more specifically, the lack of the right systems that are supporting you. Start small, pick one area, the one that drains you the most, and ask yourself, what would it look like if I didn't have to think about this or do this anymore? Because that's where the real shift happens. And if you're enjoying this kind of calm, practical thinking about running your business, subscribe, because this is exactly what I look at and explore here each and every week. Furthermore, if this resonates with you, I've created something that walks you through how to start building these kind of systems in a way that actually feels manageable. Now, you're going to find that link in my bio. And if this topic interests you, well, I've created a full series on calm AI systems for businesses, and you can watch the next video in that series. It will be coming up next.